Yes, and you can do it homeopathically too. If you really have an aversion to doing too much, but you're saying you can just put a few drops in some water.
Exactly. In fact, for those who are squeamish, the homeopathic approach is really what we're talking about, is putting a drop or two in a glass of water, and that is homeopathic.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd hardly even notice
it. If you want to go on from there, you just slowly increase the concentration. Normal Amaroli practice, according to the ancient scriptures, is, an 8-ounce glass of urine in the morning. Boom, just like that. And, it's an acquired taste for sure.
No kidding.
But, some people, just to demonstrate the power of the practice, there are some people who are sensitive to spiritual practices or sensitive to some spiritual practices. They can't do more than a few drops. If they do, an ounce or 2 ounces or 6 ounces in the morning, it's like, Kundalini overload, major, big time.
Really?
So self-pacing, which we haven't mentioned here yet in this interview, but self-pacing is really a central guiding practice in all of the AYP practices.
Yes.
And it just means knowing when to back off and pacing your practice. And that goes for Amaroli as much as anything else.
You've also written and spoken about Amaroli and Paroli, and those working together in conjunction with your spiritual practice. Can you talk a little bit about that and tell us what Paroli is?
Yeah, Paroli is really the biological process that's associated with what we were talking about before, with sexual energy rising up into the nervous system, into the neurobiology, and with some of it going into the GI tract, but other parts of it going elsewhere, up the spine and into the many subtle nerves that are in the body. But Paroli is basically the expansion of sexual function to absorb sexual vital essences in the form of fluids up into the bladder, and then expanding upward into the nervous system.
Is this just for the male or for the female as well?
It's both male and female. Both sexes have an analogous physiology as far as that's concerned. It's in the case of women, there is the equivalent of a prostate gland located and attached to the urethra, which is where the urine comes out, and of course the man has that as well. And the process of Paroli is reversing the flow upward of those essences. Now, there are techniques that people can use for that, especially men, and it's sort of a macho, ego male thing, people who are into that. But that's not what Paroli is really about. Mm-hmm. Paroli is about a natural transformation in neurobiological functioning, which is brought on by meditation, spinal breathing, mudras and bandhas, very routine yogic stuff that's efficiently integrated. And then you begin to have Paroli. You won't have ecstatic conductivity until you have Paroli occurring, because the sexual essences that come up into the neurobiology are a root cause of that experience. So now, as far as Amaroli is concerned in relation to Paroli, what happens when Paroli occurs is, along with the sexual essences coming up into the bladder and reversing up the flow up into the neurobiology, you also obviously have some urine, right? So Amaroli and Paroli are closely related in terms of discussing the higher neurobiology of Kundalini in particular. And that's what's meant by Amaroli and Paroli being closely related, and that is covered in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. In fact, somebody once wrote me, a guy from India wrote me and said, when you talk about consuming urine, what you're really talking about is Paroli. And I thought about it for a minute, and I realized he was right. And many people on the path experience some changes in their patterns of urination as well, which is a sort of a clue that something might be going on there. Some recirculation on the inside might be going on there.
Yes.
All of this should be given to science so that they can study
Yes.
it and we can find out the truth of what's happening.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that happens someday soon.
Yeah.
Yogani, we are almost out of time, so I think you better give your contact information and website information now.
Oh, yeah. The main website for AYP is aypsite.org. That's aypsite.org, and there are well over 300 free lessons there and a large support community, and all of the previous interviews we've done are there. So everything is free on the website. We do have books. Those are for sale. Hopefully everybody will buy one or two so we can keep this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we're just touching on the tip of the iceberg here when we have these interviews. You have to really go into the books and get the real detailed teachings to be able to understand this practice and to be able to really partake in it fully. So
I think so. That the online resources are very good for getting a very large taste of what this is about and even beginning practices. But if you're really serious about it, the books go significantly further and are much more well organized as well.
Now, what's next?
Well, the next one in the Enlightenment series, the next little book is called Self-Inquiry, Dawn of the Witness and the End of Suffering.
There we go.
And now we're coming away from the body and we're coming back to the mind and inner silence and really developing the relationship between how we think and in relation to our inner witness.
Great.
So that's the next one.
I'm excited. Yogani, thank you so much for this interview again. It's been lovely hanging out with you.
Well, thank you for having me on again, Dr. Ann.
Yep, and we'll be back next month with more good stuff.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Guru is in you.
The Guru is in you too. Thank you for joining us on Truth from the Source. To contact Dr. Ann West, send your email to drannwest, that's drannwest@aol.com. My new show on Glastonbury Radio can now be heard weekly on Thursdays at 3 p.m. and Fridays at midnight GMT on www.glastonburyradio.com. Otherwise, I'm on KKCR, the first Sunday of every month. So tune in again next time, because there just may be something there especially for you to hear. Namaste.